Good evening, everyone. Before we get started, we have a special announcement from our district translator, Ms. Balbuena, at the podium.
Thank you, President Lopez. Buenas tardes, habla Paula Balbuena. Si necesita servicios de interpretación al español, por favor llame al 1805-324-7680 e ingrese el código de acceso 215-685-387-163 más la tecla numeral y la clave X, K, P, Y y latina L. Este es un número totalmente gratis. Nuevamente, llame al número de teléfono 1805-324-7680 e ingrese el código de acceso 215-685-387-163 más la tecla numeral y la clave XKP y latina YL. También puede acceder a estas instrucciones en nuestro sitio web en mcs4kids.com, dirigiéndose a la parte inferior de la página en Quick Links y haciendo clic en Board Agendas para ir a la agenda de esta noche. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Welcome, everyone, to the Modesto City Schools 1479th regular board meeting of July 25th, 2022. This meeting is now called to order. I will, in closed session, board gave direction to legal counsel. At this moment, I'll take roll call. Trustee Irvin. Trustee Maestas.
Present.
Trustee Marks.
Present.
Trustee Mejia.
Present.
Trustee West.
Here.
Vice President Brown.
I'm present.
And President Lopez, present as well. Please join me for a moment of silence, if you wouldn't mind, please standing up, and then for the Pledge of Allegiance immediately after. Thank you very much.
One nation, under God.
Once again, good evening, everyone. This is the open session meeting for Board of Trustees. It's being live streamed at the direction of the board. The live stream is available at the district's website, and the recording will be available for viewing the day after the board meeting. Modesto City School Board meetings have been adjusted to follow health and safety precautions until further notice. And regarding to public comment, MCS has provided an opportunity for the public to provide comment. It is outlined in the agenda. The public has been given an opportunity to call and leave a voicemail, send us a comment via email, or appear in person before the board. Any public comments received via email or voicemail prior to the noon the day of the board meeting will not be read aloud, but will have been transcribed, and printed copies will be provided to each board member prior to the start of the board meeting and are available to the public. The voice and email public comments will be attached to future board meeting minutes for an approval. This practice will continue until further notice. For members of the public that are interested in commenting in the future, we welcome your comments. And if you're here with us this evening and you wish to address the board during the period for public comment on a subject that is not on the agenda, you must complete a public presentation request card, which is you can find in the back lobby, and then fill it out and deliver it to the board president prior to the period for public comment. If you need assistance from our translator, please indicate on the card. Every person who wishes to address the board, please fill out one now, as when the period for public comment starts, you can no longer submit a card. And once you fill it out, please give it to the back to Ms. Antoinette with this evening. I also want to remind you, if you wish to make a complaint against a specific district employee, you should follow the district's personnel complaint procedure. Copies of that procedure are available in the lobby, as are the agenda copies, which outlines the procedures we will observe during the period for public comment. The right to address the board does not exempt the speaker from any potential liability for defamation. And each speaker will have 3 minutes to speak for a total of 30 minutes per public comment. And with that being said, we want to welcome you and welcome our Superintendent, Dr. Neguchi, for her welcome and announcements.
Wonderful, thank you. Thank you, President Lopez. Welcome, folks that are here in person and also virtually. We're in the dead of summer. Not a whole lot going on right now because we just are finishing up with a couple weeks ago with our summer school program, which was a very robust summer program, the largest summer program we've had since my tenure here, and I'm going into my 5th year. We will be reporting out on the summer program at our next board meeting. This last week, we did welcome our managers and our principals and administrators back from the summer. We had 240 administrators out, really looking through where we've been, where we're going, really what the goal and the focus is for this year. And again, we will share all that next year because that really is the kickoff to the new school year. Just two housekeeping things. One, I have to say, I want to thank Vice President Brown for working really hard to get here today. He's been on airlines, so for those of you that have had some experiences with the airlines this summer, you know that it is quite challenging. Additionally, we have Trustee Irvin, whose flight has been canceled for 2 days straight. He was intending to be here, he couldn't be here, and they just canceled his flight today, and he couldn't get the name. He couldn't get his address on the agenda because it's already been posted. So that is Trustee Irvin's issue there. Lastly, for those of you that might have noticed I'm wearing flip-flops, I truly believe it's important to dress professionally for every single board meeting, but I have a broken toe. So if somewhere in this archive someone looks at the superintendent for walking in with flip-flops, I have an excuse for this time. I'll shove it in a shoe for the August 15th. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to President Lopez.
Thank you very much. And this takes us to Board of Education member reports. Is there any board member wishing to make a report this evening? I have Trustee Marks and Vice President Brown.
Thank you. I just had a few things. I attended the Delegate Assembly meeting, and we actually, as a group, we met in person for our first time since May. And instead of Zoom, we've been meeting on Zoom for 2 years. So it was kind of nice to see everybody in the same room together. And we shared this time our new board of director is Paul Wallace from Patterson. So he's our new director for Region 8. And he asked us to bring our agendas. And so that was kind of fun for everybody to just share kind of how our board meetings are set up and what we do or don't do at our board meetings. And so that was really helpful just to see kind of out of 6 counties, you know, how just different areas do different things. And then I also am, for CSBA, I am reviewing applications for the school board member of the year and also school board teams of the year. So it takes a little time to go through those, but it's really an honor to be part of that and just review those different people and teams. And then lastly, I attended the Clergy Council meeting and I updated them on all the wonderful things that are happening in our district because of Measure D and E and at our school sites, and especially some of the construction that they see going on around town, and just helping them understand that it's a great thing and hoping that they'll support another bond for our high schools. So that was a good opportunity just to share that. And I have to be careful how I say those things because we can't really use our time to do that as school district members. But and it was nice to have the mayor there because they're also hoping to pass a 1% bond, a 1% tax. And so she commented on that as well, and she's supportive of us. So that was helpful.
Thank you very much. Vice President Brown.
Yes, since we last met in the board meeting, the trustees all were on the bus for the July 4th parade, and that was a really fun experience, especially to see the size of the crowd back on the streets in Modesto, and to realize that we did not have any negative publicity for tragic events that happened other places for similar events. But it was great to be able to introduce the public to our electric buses. and to be on those buses, and then followed by students who were also on our buses. And so it was fun also to be right behind the Johansson or the Modesto City Schools band. Wasn't representing one particular school, but students from all schools who wanted to participate in that summer band. So that was exciting. And then I also want to report that the bond committee for the high school bond has met twice already, once in person, once by Zoom, and our next meeting will be August 8th. We have great participation from district employees, Modesto Teachers Association, Adolfo and I representing the board, and a lot of community members at large as well. So we've got a very powerful team, and we're making great progress, and good things are happening.
Thank you very much. Vice President Brown, do I have any board reports from our teams, board members? Seeing none, I just would like to say that, yes, it was amazing seeing everyone out for the 4th of July parade. It was great to spend time with everyone and seeing our community out. Talking about buses, which it was great to be on our electric buses. There's an event coming up this Saturday, July 30th, at a district event called Stuff the Bus. So what is this? We're hoping to get donations for our students with school supplies, back to school supplies that they'll be needing in the next coming weeks. So this event will be in the Walmart parking lot off of 6th Road. It will be July 30th from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. And then they'll also be giving out free haircuts for our students, K through 12, provided by our Barber Academy and Paul Mitchell. And so there'll be raffle prices, face painting, and then the main goal is we want to get our students ready to go for the school. So if you have any donations, pencils, pens, whatever it may be, they will sure love to have that. So if you can drop them off this Saturday, that would be great. And so that is my report. And with that, we'll be moving on to A7, which is recognitions, and I'll turn it over to Associate Superintendent Tim Surley to introduce our special speakers or presenters for the evening.
Thank you, President Lopez. I'm pleased to introduce Jay Kim and Drew Rhodes, who are here with Synergistic. Synergistic is our partner in energy conservation, and they are here tonight to present the board and the district with an Energy Conservation Stewardship Award based on the progress we made in our energy conservation measures over the last 2 years.
Good evening. In July 2020, Modesto City Schools partnered with Synergistic to reduce its carbon footprint through energy conservation. Under the leadership of the board, Superintendent Dr. Neguchi, Mr. Tim Zerley, Mr. Roger Orth, and Mr. Gilbert Rosas, our energy team has worked with the M&O staff, administrators, and teachers to save over $1 million in energy costs, including water. We have worked hard to make sure teachers and students are comfortable in classrooms and also made sure that energy is not wasted at nights and weekends. Your reduced carbon footprint is the equivalent to the CO2 generated by nearly 10 million miles of driving in an average vehicle. We're also currently working to get Modesto City Schools Energy Star recognition to validate this great endeavor. Now, we've all seen the excitement around electric buses, and Mr. Gilbert Rosas reminds me frequently that they are a symbol of hope and a means of change. So with that, it is my great honor to present to you this banner and also this plaque in recognition of being a leader in sustainability and serving as a model of energy stewardship to school districts around the country. So with that, we want to say congratulations.
We'd like to invite President Lopez down, Superintendent, and the Vice President Brown, and Superintendent Dr. Neguchi to get the award and the plaque.
Thank you very much. And this moves us to A8, approval of the consent agenda. Is there any comments regarding consent agenda for the items for this evening? Hearing none, do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move approval.
Moved by trustee Marks, seconded by trustee
Second.
Maestas. All those in favor, please raise, oh, I have to do roll call this evening. I'll do roll call. Trustee Maestas,
Aye.
trustee Marks,
Aye.
trustee Mejia,
Aye.
trustee West,
Aye.
Vice President Brown,
Aye.
President Lopez, aye as well. Motion approved unanimously. This takes us to approval of order of discussion and action items. Do I hear a motion to approve the order of discussion action items for the evening?
I move.
Moved by trustee Mejia, seconded by trustee Marks. I'll conduct roll call. Trustee Maestas,
Aye.
trustee Marks,
Aye.
trustee Mejia,
Aye.
trustee West,
Aye.
Vice President Brown,
Aye.
President Lopez, aye. Motion passes unanimously. And this takes us to the period for public presentations. Thank you for attending tonight's meeting and showing your interest for our schools. I have no cards this evening. Is that correct, Ms. Antoinette? Yes. Perfect. Is there any other public comments from via email or voicemail? Thank you very much. Okay, and I'd just like to let everyone know that even though we cannot engage in discussion or take any formal actions on items that are not on the agenda, we do thank everyone for following our protocols and addressing the board and for taking your time to share your views with us this evening. They mean a lot and we appreciate them. This takes us to B1, California School Employees Association report. Is there a representative CSEA with us this evening? Seeing none, we'll be moving on to B2, which is report on with ratification of services agreement with Center for Human Service for mental health clinicians during the period of July 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2023, and approval of service agreements with Center for Human Service for student assistance specialists with family support specialists for the period of August 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2023. And this is Ms. Hinkle.
Maybe. Oh, it's already on. Good evening. All right. Good evening, Board President Lopez, trustees, Superintendent Neguchi, cabinet, and guests. My name is Danielle Hinkle, Senior Director of Student Support Services. This remote is not working. Need some tech support with a remote. Oh, here we go. Fantastic. The purpose of my presentation this evening is to highlight our long-standing relationship with the Center for Human Services and the social emotional support they provide for our students. I think we can all agree that we had a fantastic year bringing our kids back on campus last year. However, we knew that after more than a year of learning from home, there would be a great need for additional social emotional support. You may recall that in preparation for last year, we increased the number of contracted providers from the center, And when I share the data, you'll see that we had tremendous growth in the number of students and families that we were able to serve. My presentation will highlight successes and challenges, including next steps for our work. Lastly, at the end of my presentation, I will request ratification and approval of 3 service agreements with the Center for Human Services for the 2022-23 school year. Each service agreement reflects the unique work of each provider type, all of which you will hear about this evening. Before I get into the details of my report, I'd like to publicly acknowledge, I was going to say 2, I'll say 3 extraordinary individuals from the center. First and foremost, David Collins, Youth Services Program Director. David could not be here this evening, but ready at the helm to step in with any questions. We have Liz, who's a program manager. She's back here. Also, I'd like to publicly acknowledge Stephen Collins. He is the Behavioral Health Manager for the Center for Human Services, also here to support any questions that we may have. This report and subsequent approvals of service agreements is in direct alignment with District Goal 1.4, develop a multi-tiered system of supports for all students. A little history. Many of you know the Center for Human Services is a nonprofit community counseling agency. Modesto City Schools and the center have formed a collaboration that has continued to expand for more than 30 years. The center's primary role with Modesto City Schools is to provide much-needed social-emotional supports to our students. They also support our district by providing professional development for our staff and training for parents. Our work with the center utilizes 3 different provider types, and you will hear more about each of these in just a moment. So we have Student Assistance Specialists, or SAS, Family Support Specialists, and Behavior Clinicians. This particular slide just gives you a snapshot of the number of days each of these providers is at each of our school sites. So moving on to a little bit more details about these provider types. The largest number of CHS providers are Student Assistance Specialists, or SAS, as I mentioned. These support staff are assigned to support all 34 sites and our alternative education programs housed on the Pearson campus. The primary role of the SAS is to provide Tier 2 and Tier 3 support to students with social and/or emotional needs. Students are served either in a set number of individual sessions or in a group setting. The SAS can also provide parent trainings and presentations as determined by site administration. All of you may remember that prior to the pandemic, our 712 sites also had an additional SAS in our intervention center. And while we had a hold or a pause on that during the pandemic, we were happy to bring back the intervention center SAS last year to our campuses. This particular individual is the primary person involved in de-escalation and/or social emotional skill building with students who are needing intervention center support. Beginning in the 1920 school year, the district expanded the contract with the center as part of a Learning Communities for School Success program grant. Grant was written primarily to address chronic absenteeism with funding for family support specialists at targeted school sites. Under direction of the site administrative team, the family support specialists provide outreach and work directly with the family when students are exhibiting absenteeism issues. They can also support families whose children have some significant behavioral challenges. The work of the family support specialists centers around the family with skill building and ongoing parent education and training. Modesto City Schools also contracts with the Center for Mental Health Clinicians to support at targeted sites. We utilize a behavioral consultation model where the clinician works alongside the adults in the school, whether that be administration, teachers, or even parents, on how to best identify and work with students who exhibit or have mental health challenges. These clinicians also provide individual and group counseling services to identified Tier 3 students in need. Okay, I'm going to move on to some data. So first off, if we're looking at data for the student assistance specialists, if you look at the 2-year comparison, you can see that in this most recent school year, The SAS served over 4,600 students, which is about 2.5 times more than the prior year, so 250% increase. With these students, they conducted more than 18,000 individual sessions with close to 500 group sessions. When students were in crisis, the SAS providers supported with the initial crisis intake. And I do want to stress the word initial, kind of that first line of defense, to ask the appropriate questions to determine if we need to go further with a risk assessment. Oftentimes, those preliminary crisis intakes did lead to a risk assessment or other resources for the student or the family. If we're looking at the demographic distribution of students seen, the breakdown closely resembles that of district enrollment. So when I say closely resembles, the number of students served by the SAS is fairly close to the distribution of ethnic groups in our district. Okay, now I'm going to move on to the behavior clinician. So with our behavior clinician, we also showed great increases. We had close to 2,500 clinical support sessions with individual students, their families, or group sessions. And this is more than quadrupled, 4 times that of the prior year. Clinicians engaged in supporting staff and parents with over 1,500 consultations, which provided recommendations on how to best support students' behavioral challenges. Clinicians conducted more than 400 presentations and trainings. These included presentations in classrooms for kiddos, presentations and trainings at staff meetings, and in parent engagement meetings. And I will also add that, just another example, Steve Collins and his team, they are also providing professional development next week for our counselors as our certificated staff members come back on campuses. With the demographic distribution of students, we can see that our white group of students is slightly higher than that of district enrollment, and then subsequently we see lower representation in our other student groups with the clinician. As some of the newest providers in the Modesto City School system of support, the family support specialists provide a great layer of help and assistance to our families. Last year, these specialists served close to 250 families who were experiencing challenges in getting their students re-engaged in attending school. Additionally, our family specialists logged more than 2,000 contacts with the families that they were assigned to. And I would be remiss if I didn't add that, really many of our students, almost all of our students experience some absenteeism issues. And so the families that our family support specialists were serving were those that were really not impacted perhaps by COVID or COVID quarantine, those types of things, but were really just struggling getting re-engaged. Our demographics with the family support specialists, we see that our Hispanic families were served most often when compared to our other ethnic groups. Okay, so aside from the data that I just shared with you, additional data that helps us gauge effectiveness of services is in the form of staff and family satisfaction surveys. So first, if we're focusing on the staff survey, this is just a snippet of some of the data that we have, but I would say that overwhelmingly our staff, whether that's administrators or teachers, are really indicating high levels of satisfaction. They believe that services are helping their students. They believe that our contracted providers are very knowledgeable about student issues and how to best support our students. The providers are really part of the school's culture, and they're a positive influence at the school, and that they have effective follow-through. Just some survey comments. I'm not going to read all of these, but just some highlights. Staff appreciated the regular mental health check-ins with students. They felt like the providers really provided a safe space, that they were easily accessible, open door policy, very welcoming, and that students were improving academically once they were receiving additional services. When we're looking at our family satisfaction surveys, again, a high level of satisfaction with the providers that their student or that they, the family unit, were working with. They felt very relaxed and at ease with the provider. They felt like they were, that resources and information were being shared, that the providers were teaching their students with strategies and skills to be more successful with their emotional health so that they could be more successful at school. Survey comments, again, I do not want to read all of these to you. They're there for you to read, but in short, parents were very appreciative of the help that they received. Even some parents recognizing, I realize my children are difficult sometimes, and I appreciate your patience and kindness when you were working with our children. Another family commented about the great level of compassion that they felt from the provider when there was a crisis situation with their child, and they also felt that there was quick follow-through for their children. All right, so moving on to successes and challenges. So from the perspective of myself and many, the successes in our collaborative partnership with the center are great. However, what I truly appreciate is the continuous collaboration between Modesto City Schools and the CHS leadership. They are willing to lend a hand in just about anything that we ask them to assist us with. For example, last week we had a crisis situation involving a staff member, and they were very quick and responsive to be able to support our employees in their own feelings of what was going on with our staff member. Center for Human Services provides ongoing professional development whenever we ask for help and assistance in that area. They absolutely provide a tiered system of additional support for our students, and any time that we have an issue or a concern that rises to the top, they are ready, willing, and able to kind of troubleshoot that situation, and we celebrate our successes. Challenges that I would point out, not unlike any other business in the United States, the center experienced some difficulty with hiring staff. Most notably with the student assistance specialist and the family support specialist. That's where we have the highest number of providers. It improved as the year went on, and I would add that Mr. Collins was very strategic in ensuring that all sites had some coverage, some level of support with the providers, even if it wasn't the full allocated number of days. And then the other area for continued growth in all areas is just communication of services. Really making sure that our students and our families and our staff members understand the different provider types and what they can have to offer, and how to get connected with those providers when help is needed. So next steps, at the beginning of each year, there's a needs analysis where the administrator gets an opportunity to meet with the incoming providers to talk about the unique needs of the site and some goals that they have for the year. Again, communication, I mentioned that with you earlier. That is always an ongoing process for next steps. Promotion of our available service with the different provider types, and of course, tracking our data as always to determine our strengths and areas for growth. Before we move to questions, or let me back up. Before we move to the recommendation of ratifying the service agreement for the mental health clinicians, which began July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023, and approval of service agreements for the student assistance specialists and the family support specialists, I would like to open it up to any questions before we move to those ratifications and approvals.
Thank you very much for the report. I will go out to the public. Is there anyone in the public wishing to make a comment or question around this report? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board. Is there any questions or comment from our board members? I have two. I'll start with Trustee Maestas.
Thank you very much. Thank you for this report. I have a couple of questions. I guess there are less questions and more comments. We often do that, right? Thank you for providing all of these data. I love looking through data. That's just like something I love to do, is look through data and see the connections. There is a significantly smaller percent difference in the family served and contact supported than in the other two, the behavior consultation and the student assistance specialists. The percentage increase from 2021 to 2022 and those other ones, especially the student assistance specialists, those are very high percentage increases. And my question is, were there, you mentioned that their staff is a challenge. Was there additional staff this year to provide more services for more kids? So that might be one reason we see a percent increase in those. Or do we just see a percent increase in the number of students that need services?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both. We did increase the number of providers available on our school campuses, most notably with the student assistance specialists, and that's where we saw some of those huge increases. But yes, we do have additional students who need support. I can share that even with the behavior clinicians, where we saw some great increases, one of the things that we did there was Mr. Collins came to me at the beginning of the year and said, hey, usually we kind of reserve the case management with individual students for those with severe and significant discipline issues. Can we broaden that reach a little bit to be able to serve more students with the clinician? And so we agreed that that would be great, as long as the behavior type situations were, kind of first and foremost in that. So it is a little bit of both, increase of students needing support in addition to the number of providers available to give that support. I hope that answered your question.
It does, it does. We do, I've worked with a lot of AP students in my career, and those students suffer from mental health issues. They might not have discipline problems, but they need services too. So I appreciate that we're broadening that, not just to students that are discipline issues, but also just students that need mental health services. Another question on that, would it be possible to get these data aggregated by your 7-12 and K-6 split services, just so I can see the amount of students that were providing services in each of those areas?
So the data that we received this year was just kind of lump sum data of all the students served. I could certainly go back to the Collins brothers to see if they have that capability to be able to divide that.
Okay, great. That would be great. One last thing here. Just kind of a comment here. I am extremely grateful that we're able to provide these services for our students, but the mental health of our students is not a one program. Like, we're not going to solve issues with one program, right? It's a team effort. Like, all of the people all the adults in contact, all the people that are in contact with our students. I know that we do a survey later on, and I think this has really separate issue from this, but it'd be interesting to see where those anxieties of students, confidentially speaking, but we'd like to see where students finding their mental health issues coming from within our schools, and what can we do to help that other than provide these services. Where can we help our students to be more successful and feel safer and less anxiety while they're in school?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have Vice President Brown, and then Trustee West. Trustee West.
So before I ask my question, do we know for sure if our remote board members have been able to weigh in on whether or not they have questions?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, good. My question has to do with the broader district that we are, the high school district. We serve students who come to us from the feeder districts. Now, I'm curious if all of the feeder districts to Modesto City Schools are able to work with the Center for Human Services and receive similar programs so that we know that students coming to us for our high schools have had opportunities to receive the help that you so effectively provide to the Modesto City School students.
I can make a general comment, and then if Mr. Collins has anything to add. I would say that each individual school district could, if they chose, partner with Center for Human Services to engage in different providers, just as we do. I can't speak about Sylvan. Yeah, thank you so much.
Hi, good evening. Steve Collins, I'm the Behavioral Health Director. And so one thing we have about our behavioral health system across the state is it's very, very complicated based on how severe a student is, their level of insurance. And so what we do is we like to consider ourselves a one-stop shop. We have a wonderful history and a contract with Modesto City Schools. We also have a relationship with the County Behavioral Health, BHRS. And so we like to be almost like a one-stop shop where we know where everybody can fit. And so if they fit with us, we know how to, we get the referral from the school. We do a screening, and it kind of factors into a complicated algorithm based on those factors of insurance, where they live, level of severity, and then we kind of try to get them to where they need to go, whether that is with us, whether it's with Kaiser, whether it's one of the county programs, because it is so complicated. But we've been in the field for so long that we really know where to help people go. So even if it's not us, if it's, oh, this person needs a visit from a psychiatrist, we need to get them linked with that. They have Medi-Cal insurance, they're this level of severity, okay, we know who to contact, then we try to connect them with that source. And so we track all that referral data, but that's what we've really tried to do. And BHRS is really on board, just trying to make this, they have core treatment model teams, trying to help everyone get to where they need to go. So we definitely see a large number of them, and then if it's not us, we do try to connect them with an appropriate placement, even if from the high schools, from the feeder districts, we try to get them to where they can be served.
Is there any?
Okay, thank you. No problem.
Our next board member is Trustee West.
Thank you for this presentation, Ms. Hinkle. As you know, this is a subject that is near and dear to my heart. I'm very thankful that we can offer these services to not only our students, but to our families as well. You know, there's been so much need the last few years. There always has been need, but especially the last few years. And so to be able to address those mental health, social, emotional needs of our students and families is wonderful. I'm really happy to hear about the success we've had and the growth we've had this year. And it's been a real joy working with David Collins and Stephen Collins, I don't know as well, but I'm just so appreciative of all of the collaboration that we've been able to have with them. My one question, and I think probably you already do this, but when we're looking at addressing the needs of hiring student assistant specialists, do we normally contact with the universities, the local universities in the area, to try to recruit interns who are needing to collect some hours?
So the hiring for the different provider types does take place actually through the Center for Human Services, not through Modesto City Schools. And I would bet that I see a nod, that they have strong partnerships with our local universities. I know that many of our provider types are working for licensure, whether it be a marriage and family therapist licensure, et cetera. And so, yes, they do reach out to the colleges and universities. I'll leave it at that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments? If not, I will request a motion to ratify the service agreement with the Center for Human Service for Mental Health Clinicians during the period of July 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2023, and approve the service agreement with Center for Human Services for Student Assistance Specialists and Family Support Specialists for the period August 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2023.
I motion.
Motion by trustee West and seconded by trustee Mejia. And at this point, I will make a roll call vote. Trustee Maestas,
Aye.
trustee Marks,
Aye.
trustee Mejia,
Aye.
trustee West,
Aye.
Vice President Brown,
Aye.
President Lopez, aye. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
For all your work that you're doing for our families and for our students. We really appreciate it. We'll be moving on to B3, Report on Ethnic Studies Task Force Recommendation, and this is Ms. Ferris. Welcome.
Okay. Good evening, Board President Lopez, Board of Trustees, Superintendent Neguchi, and Cabinet members. My name is Fallon Ferris, Equity and Intervention Specialist for Modesto City Schools, and tonight I'll be presenting on our 2022 Ethnic Studies Task Force. So the purpose of this presentation is to define and explain the purpose of our Ethnic Studies Task Force, explain the process that our district engaged in with the Ethnic Studies Task Force, review program description, guiding principles, program type, and identify next steps, and then allow some time for questions. So the goal that we believed most aligned with the addition of ethnic studies is goal number 1, to increase academic achievement and ensure equitable access to all students to attain college and career readiness. Once again, previously board approved is our equity task force recommendations from last year. And this time we'll be focusing on recommendation number 1, analyzing grading policies and course offerings. So many of you know about AB 101. AB 101 states that all students in the state of California must complete a semester-long ethnic studies course beginning in the school year 2025 to 2026. So with this knowledge, our district undertook a 4-step approach of engaging our Ethnic Studies Task Force to prepare for the 2025-2026 deadline to meet state guidelines. Those 4 steps are as follows. Step 1 was to form the task force of community members, district officials, site administrators, teachers, and students. Step 2 was to meet as a task force 5 times over a 6-month time frame. Step 3 was to gather input and develop the program description, guiding principles, key terms, and program type. And step 4 was to create action items for the 2022-2023 school year. Oh, that will actually, yeah, this upcoming year. So, as you'll see on the screen, I'd like to take a moment and thank everyone who participated in the Ethnic Studies Task Force. We truly do appreciate your time and input. It was very cherished, and we'd like to thank you all. Now I'd like to get into what our Ethnic Studies Task Force developed. First, we'll begin with the Ethnic Studies program definition. Ethnic studies is the interdisciplinary study of the histories, experiences, cultures, and issues of race and ethnicity in the United States. This course explores oppression, inequities, perseverance, and contribution of marginalized groups to U.S. society that have been missing from traditional curriculum and content standards. The course will ensure that students see themselves in historical and contemporary context while fostering respect for diversity and recognizing the advantages of inclusion. This will in turn develop student respect and understanding of various local communities and people in our increasingly diverse nation. I think my clicker might have went out. Okay. So the determined guiding principles by our Ethnic Studies Task Force are as follows: to increase knowledge by teaching to understand each other's culture and the contributions made individually and collectively to reflect the community, uplift voices, histories, contributions of local, regional, and global communities, study the inequities experienced by African Americans, Latino, Latinas, Native Americans, Asian Americans, and other marginalized communities to increase student understanding, content and curriculum being grounded in facts, data, and lived experiences, connecting course content to current and historical events and their impact, encourage student community service and civic engagement, to provide opportunity for student self-reflection, as well as to promote social justice and social responsibility and empower students to become agents of advocacy and agents of change. The last one that we came up with was to operate on the premise that race and racism have been and continue to be profoundly powerful social and cultural forces in American society. Another item that the Ethnic Studies Task Force meetings came up with was needing to have key terms defined. This was due to the fact that everyone agreed that we and the students that would be taking this course needed to speak a common language. So those key terms that we came up with were culture, diversity, equality, equity, ethnicity, inequity, interdisciplinary, marginalized, oppression, perseverance, race, and social justice. So as we mentioned before, all school districts throughout California get to define how to integrate ethnic studies into their master schedules for their individual school districts. Within the Ethnic Studies Task Force, there were long discussions on how best everyone believed ethnic studies could be integrated in our schools, but there were many obstacles that came to light, including competing electives. So the Ethnic Studies Task Force came up with a suggestion for our school district to have Ethnic Studies be a semester-long course that's in tandem with the other semester-long course that we have, World Geography and Religions. Our next steps will be to gather input from the Board of Trustees, to begin Ethnic Studies curriculum build-out, and then we plan to have our Ethnic Studies elective be built into the master schedule for the next school year, 2023 to 2024. Thank you for your time, and now I'd like to open for questions.
Thank you very much for this report. I'll go out to the public, seeing if there's any comments or questions from the public. Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board, and I have a couple of hands. I'll start with Trustee Maestas.
Thank you. Yeah, I just got a couple questions. Thank you, by the way. This is very detailed, and I really like all of it, honestly. The ethnic studies, the suggestion for the semester long with world geography and religions. Can you just give me a little bit of background on the world geography and religions? So the specific questions, is that class already a requirement for graduation for our high schools?
It is, yes, for Modesto City Schools.
Modesto schools.
Correct.
What grade is that normally taken in?
9th grade.
So these topics are going to be in a 9th grade class?
Correct. That was the recommendation that came from the task force.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Trustee West.
Thank you very much for this interesting report. I have just one question. What is going to happen with the health class that we currently offer for a semester in tandem with world religions and geography?
I'll take it. We recognize that we have a challenge there, Trustee West. Luckily, this year we are forming a graduation requirement committee that will take that into consideration. We recognize that if we put that on the back end of geography and world religions, we have an issue with health with freshmen. So that'll be something that's discussed when the graduation committee meets.
Thank you.
Vice President Brown.
Yes, Ms. Ferris, great presentation. A lot of hard work has gone in, and it sounds like you've really got the framework built for how this curriculum will come together. Are we thinking that we will create that curriculum ourselves, or are we going to be looking for texts that would be appropriate for us to use?
I'll let Associate Superintendent Mike Rich, if I speak out of turn, Mike, please let me know, but I don't believe that there is any text that addresses the California standards at this point, so I do think that there would be some teacher creation. Mr. Rich, I don't know if you have any additional information you'd want to share.
Yeah, that is correct. At this point, the state has not solidified their framework for all that, so we would be looking to pull resources together from wherever we may find them.
Thank you very much. Trustee Marks?
I appreciate all the work that went into the summary of this, having not been able to go to every single meeting and missed the last one when all of this was decided. So I appreciate the fact that all the minds came together. I saw a couple of them that came from my little table, especially because I was on there with some MTA members, and was appreciative of some of the statements that were made that we came up with. And I thought, I didn't know if they'd stay or not, but that was helpful. And I really like the just the way it's going to incorporate in our community and the voices in our community, and then go out from there out to the world voices. And so I think that's really awesome how that came about. So I appreciate the summary here and all the people that spent a lot of time. I mean, I know every night we had a lot of discussions, and the facilitator was great. So I know Trustee Maestas was there. And I believe Trustee Irvin was there as well. And so I just appreciate all of that and look forward to seeing what comes, the final product. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Trustee Maestas has a follow-up question.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking about back with my experiences teaching ninth graders. And which semester are we thinking this is going to be taught in, the first or second semester?
So I can address that. Currently with our World Religion Geography class, half of the freshman class take it the first semester, then they flip-flop with health. So it would be half of the first semester, half of the second semester is how we currently run the program.
Okay. All right, I want to see how this plays out, I guess, before it's just, freshmen come in from a lot of different schools, and that is a very tough year, and they're trying to make connections with other kids, and these are heavy topics to have as a first class your freshman year in your first semester. Don't get me wrong, I think it's important and I know kids can handle the material. I just wonder about the transition from 8th grade to high school and where that's going to align. The other question I have is, I am glad that we're looking forward before the requirement happens, because a lot of times districts get into this place where like, oh my God, a requirement's happening and I got to like shove something in that year. And that never works out. I really wish that the state would have given some guidance, because if they come out 2 years later and then they're like, well, here are the texts at an 11th grade level, and we're sitting here going, well, we offer it 9th grade, that's going to be tricky for us to make that transition. So I guess this is more of a statement for the state to have, given us some more direction beforehand. But I really appreciate all of the direction that the committee has done and the thought that they've put in. I am going to really kind of just see how it plays out before saying, oh, this is how I think it's going to happen. Because, I mean, I've had freshmen that are great freshmen that can handle, and really where their generation is coming from, they already have this within their, they're already talking about these things, right? I just also know where they are in that freshman, that September, October, November, when they're coming in from different 8th grades trying to meet, that's an awkward time. So we'll have to see kind of how that plays out. Maybe gather some data and seeing how things are working.
I will say, I know it's going to be an elective, I want to say the first 2 years, so I think that might be part of that pilot with that as well.
So something to consider as we are all growing with this. It was mentioned by Mr. Herbst a few minutes ago, and that is this year we are going to take a look at our graduation requirements. Now, depending upon what we land on with the requirements, will then dictate and give guidance to where this course fits into the master schedule. So we need to be able to, one, honor the work that was done with ethnic studies, get working on developing a course, because we know it's going to be somewhere. Now, once we come back to you, probably late fall, January, when we land on, was it January, February, when we land on recommendations for changing graduation requirements, then we'll be able to have a better place on where it fits. It really is a jigsaw puzzle right now, so there's still some unknowns here, so I want to share that because it's not, there was a recommendation, but it's going to depend upon how it's all going to fit in the puzzle. So we will take the feedback that you gave. I think it's good consideration as Mr. Rich and his team will be looking at the graduation requirements.
Thank you very much. I like to say that, I definitely hear, your concerns, and I know it's a very important topic that, our community now has a say about how it's going to look, especially since, we are creating, as a district, we're creating how that curriculum is going to look. And so it's important that we stay by community to really, really have a say on what our kids will be experiencing through this class. The thing I did want to say is a lot of times these formative years, 8th, 9th, and 10, really can shape the outcome of our students in the future. And we talk about the process of them seeing themselves identified in history and in the influence that their peers have done for our society. So seeing themselves in the curriculum at those early stages can be very beneficial when we're talking about them seeing themselves, how they can influence and impact their society, and getting prepped up in 10th, 11th, 12th to actually be a strong building block on that in the future. So I see both places, but I also don't see it necessarily a bad idea to have it early on so that they can come in with that frame of thought of like, what is their piece, what is their contribution, and how they can start shaping that, right? It's first about seeing themselves in the process and seeing themselves as influential to our society and beneficial to our society. So I see both ways, but I do see that.
Can I just make I agree with you. Yeah. Like, the earlier the better.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. Just my only concern is that the power of not only this course, but honestly, we talk about this in courses of mathematics and everywhere, is the power of student discourse. Mm-hmm. Is students being able to discuss and have comfort, and especially with this kind of course, to have comfort discussing and talking about things and debating and having those discussions. The timing of that so that we can have rich discussion and how we build that up. I mean, we can do it in a 9th grade class. We can do it in the first semester. What's going to have to happen, though, is that there's going to be a lot of care that needs to be taken in how do we build that discourse and that comfort and the culture in the classroom to be able to have those conversations, so that way we can do that. Because I agree with you. The earlier the better. Yeah. It's just finding that sweet spot that is, I think, which starting early is going to help us find that sweet spot.
Definitely, and I definitely agree with that aspect too. We want there to be discussion, so that's vital as well. Any other questions from our board member? Any comments? Seeing none, thank you so much for this report. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to more recommendations from our Ethnic Studies Task Force. And so we'll be moving on to B4, and this is public notice to approve waiver request for California Education Code 4425.3.11 to submit waiver request for to the California Commission on Teacher Credentialing.
Desk check. Yes, thank you very much. Good evening, Board President Lopez, trustees, Dr. Neguchi, and Cabinet. Item B4 is a waiver request related to credentialing requirement for 2 of our certificated instructors as required by the Commission for Teacher Credentialing. In this case, it applies to instructors in CTE and one in JROTC who are highly proficient in their respective industries. but who do not yet have formal pedagogical training in instructing English learners. So upon approval, this waiver covers the requirement while they complete the coursework as part of the process of clearing their respective credentials. So we recommend the board approve this item.
Thank you very much. Is there any comments from the public on this agenda item? Seeing none, bring it back to the board. Any comments or questions from our board members? Seeing none, do I hear a motion to approve the public notice to approve waiver requests of California Education Code 4425 3.11 to submit waiver request to the California Commission on Teacher Credentialing?
I move.
I'll second.
Moved by trustee Maesta, seconded by trustee Marks. I'll conduct roll call vote. Trustee Maestas?
Aye.
Trustee Marks?
Aye.
Trustee Mejia?
Aye.
Trustee West?
Aye.
Vice President Brown?
Aye.
President Lopez? Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. This moves us to B5, public notice to approve variable term waiver request of California Education Code 4452.3 to submit variable term waiver request to the California Commission on Teacher Credentialing. And this is Mr. Henderson again.
Yes, thank you again. Item B5, very similar to the last item, as it's a waiver request related to a credentialing requirement for 2 certificated instructors as required by the CTC. In this case, it applies to 2 instructors who were hired for our dual language academy at Bret Harte Elementary. They're in the process of securing their bilingual cross-cultural language and development, or BCLAD, but have a couple requirements remaining that they're finishing up. Upon approval, this waiver covers the requirement while they complete coursework or other requirements as part of the process of securing their BCLAD authorizations. We recommend that the board approve this item as well.
Thank you very much. Any comments from the public? Seeing none, any comments or questions from our board members? Seeing none, do I hear a motion to approve the public notice approval variable term waiver request of California Education Code 4425 3.3 to submit variable term waiver request to the California Commission on Teacher Credentialing? And I see a motion from trustee West and a seconded by trustee Mejia. I'll conduct roll call vote. Trustee Maestas?
Aye.
Trustee Marks?
Aye.
Trustee Mejia?
Aye.
Trustee West?
Aye.
Vice President Brown?
Aye.
President Lopez? Aye as well. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
We move on to B6, public notice to approve submission of provisional internship permit to California Commission on Teacher Credentialing. Mr. Henderson.
Yes, thank you again. Item B6 serves as public notice to approve the submission of a provisional internship permit, or PIP, as we refer to them, to the CTC. The district makes every effort to hire candidates who are fully credentialed. However, in some cases, due to need and teacher shortages, we do hire individuals who are in the process of completing requirements and working towards securing their preliminary credentials. This can be a function of the need for high demand, low supply, or highly specialized positions, the timing of vacancies, and the need to fill positions mid-year, and other factors. COVID also did play a role, as it hampered or delayed students in credentialing programs from completing coursework or taking tests. So I'd anticipate there's a little bit of a wave on this side of COVID with some of these things as students complete certain requirements. In this case, 2 are completing requirements for special education credentials, either a mild moderate or moderate severe credential. 1 is in math and 1 is PE and health. It's that and health. You might think PE, I thought we have all kinds of those. That's true, but having PE as well as the health authorization to be able to teach both is not very common. So that's what went into this, made that a challenge. 3 of these are entering their 2nd year with Modesto City Schools. So they're known entities. 1 is beginning year 3. All are in good standing, and we recommend the board approve this item as we'll continue supporting them toward their credential process.
Thank you very much. I'll go out to the public. There is no public at this point. So I'll I'll bring it back to the board for any questions or comments. Seeing none, do I hear a motion to approve the public notice to approve submission of approval internship permit to the California Commission on Teacher Credentialing? And I
I'll
had
move
a
approval.
I'll
motion
second.
by Vice President Brown and a seconded by Trustee Marks. Roll call vote. Trustee Maestas,
Aye.
Trustee Marks,
Aye.
Trustee Mejia,
Aye.
Trustee West,
Aye.
Vice President Brown,
Aye.
President Lopez, I as well. Motion carries unanimously. This takes us to B7, ratification of letter of agreement between Modesto City Schools District and Modesto City Schools Manager for the 2022-2023 school year. Mr. Henderson.
Thank you again. Board President Lopez, trustees, and Dr. Neguchi and Cabinet, the district has engaged with representatives of MCS managers on the provisions of an agreement for compensation and other terms of employment for 22-23 school year. The terms of the agreement are captured in the letter of agreement that's attached to the items, and to touch on the main ones, the terms include a 6% ongoing increase to the management salary schedule effective July 1, 2022, 2 one-time off the salary schedule payments, continuation of our professional development initiative to receive up to 1% of base salary for the completion of up to 12 hours of district-approved professional development, an increase from $700 per month to $800 per month in the district contribution toward the purchase of district-approved medical benefit plans effective January 1st, 2023 for the new benefit year. Continuation of the hiring incentive for hard-to-fill positions in management, adjustment to management daily rates to reflect holiday pay calculations, and the addition of a sixth step of the management salary schedule to recognize and incentivize retention in management service. The financial impact of the agreement is as it's stated in the item. In accordance with the reference government code, it's recommended that the board ratify the letter of agreement between the district and MCS managers for the 22-23 school year.
Thank you very much. Any comment from our board members? Seeing none, do I hear a motion for the ratification of letter of agreement between Modesto City Schools District and Modesto City Schools Manager for the 2022-2023 school year?
Move approval?
Motion by Trustee Marks, seconded by Trustee Maestas. Roll call vote. Trustee Maestas,
Aye.
Trustee Marks,
Aye.
Trustee Mejia,
Aye.
Trustee West,
Aye.
Vice President Brown,
Aye.
President Lopez, I as well. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We move on to B8, ratification of amendment to cabinet salary schedule effective July 1st, 2022, health and welfare benefits effective January 1st, 2023, and other terms and conditions of employment. Mr. Henderson.
Yes, on the home stretch now, and then I think you have the last of the items here. Item B8 seeks approval from the board for ratification of an amendment to reflect 3 provisions related to compensation and other terms of employment effective for the 22-23 school year. Specifically, the terms include 6% increase to the cabinet salary schedule effective July 1, 2022, continuation of the professional development initiative consistent with other district management employees, and an increase from $700 per month to $800 per month district contribution toward the purchase of district-approved plans effective January 1, 2023 for the new benefit year. The positions comprising executive cabinet to whom this item applies are listed in the amendment attached to the item. The financial impact of the agreement is as stated in the agenda item. With that, it's recommended that the board ratify the amendment to the cabinet salary schedule effective July 1, 2022, health and welfare benefits effective January 1, 2023, and other terms and conditions of employment.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments from our board members? Seeing none, do I hear a motion for the ratification of amendment to cabinet salary schedule effective July 1st, 2022, health and welfare benefits effective January 1st, 2023, and other terms and conditions of employment? And I see
I move approval.
motion by Trustee Marks, seconded by trustee Maestas. I'll conduct roll call vote. Trustee Maestas,
Aye.
trustee Marks,
Aye.
trustee Mejia,
Aye.
trustee West,
Aye.
Vice President Brown,
Aye.
and President Lopez, aye as well. Motion carries unanimously. This moves on to our final item for this evening, B9, approval of amendment to employment agreement with Dr. Sarah Neguchi, Superintendent, and this is President Lopez. So tonight for the board is considering the recommended approval of a second amendment to Dr. Neguchi's employment agreement with Board of Trustees. Government Code Section 54-953 requires the board to receive a verbal summary of any employment agreements with a local agency representative prior to taking final action. In accordance to this requirement, the amendment states, Dr. Neguchi's employment agreement is extended to June 30th, 2026. Commencing the 2021-2022 school year, Dr. Neguchi is eligible to receive the doctoral stipend, professional development stipends, and any one-time payments commensurated with other certificate management employees. The amendment states that Dr. Neguchi is eligible for retiree health benefits up to the age of 65. The retiree health benefits is a contribution equal to the contribution made to the full-time certificated management employees. And from July 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2023, the board requires a supermajority of at least 5 votes to terminate the employment agreement. Is there any comments from the public on this agenda item? Seeing none, do I have any comments or questions from the board? Seeing none, do I hear a motion to approve the amendment to employment agreement with Dr. Sarah Neguchi, Superintendent?
I make a motion. We're pleased to extend your contract and allow you for a number of years with us, whether we're here or not.
Thank you very much. Have motion by trustee Marks. Do I have a second by trustee Maestas? And I will conduct a roll call vote. Trustee Maestas?
Aye.
Trustee Marks?
Aye.
Trustee Mejia?
Aye.
Trustee West?
Aye.
Vice President Brown?
Aye.
President Lopez? Aye as well. The ayes have it. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much, Dr. Neguchi. And this takes us to items to be placed on future Board of Education agendas. Is there anyone willing to have any item placed on the agenda for future meetings? Seeing none, do I have a motion and a second to close the meeting for tonight? Motion by trustee Maestas, seconded by trustee Marks. Trustee Maestas?
Aye.
Trustee Marks?
Aye.
Trustee Mejia?
Aye.
Trustee West?
Aye.
Vice President Brown?
Aye.
And President Lopez, aye. Thank you, everyone. We'll see everyone back here at our next regular board meeting of August 15th, 2022. Have a great evening. Meeting adjourned.
I just want to add and say a big Tech. Thank you to Tech. And tonight was the smoothest I've seen yet, so appreciate your guys' attention to detail, because I know you've been in here a good chunk of today to make sure that it happened. So thank you very much.